We could reset the clock to 6:30.
Yeah,
That'd be
right.
just fine.
That extra 3 minutes is what's gonna kill me. So, good evening to folks in the room. Good evening to folks online. We do have a quorum for the Public Works Committee. So we have Vice Chair Don Knorr leading. We have Brandon Lang online, David Lorman here, Kim Madden here, and Carrie Schuffner online. So the chair knew he would be out this evening, and Gayatri, I believe, is still overseas. So not expecting that.
Sean, I see a lot of people on the side here. Do you need time to write everybody's name down and collect everyone's name? Like Julie doesn't have a last name.
No, but Zoom actually captures all of this for me in a report, so I can copy that down whenever. It's a fair point though. So Julie, who is online, if you want to type in your last name, I do want to invite you to do that, but you don't have to. So I'll say it that way.
Okay. All right. Call the meeting to order at 6:34. Roll has been taken. First item on the agenda is minutes from the 4/8/2024 meeting. Are there any discussion items related to these minutes from members? Ask one more time, just to make sure you guys weren't there.
So that'd be
So given no comments, meeting minutes are accepted.
great.
Second item on the agenda, Middleton Shores Traffic Impact Analysis approval. And you're looking for an approval from the committee, correct?
Correct, yeah, so this was just for the first phase of Middleton Shores, which is just north of Century Avenue, effectively east of Allen Boulevard, where one building is proposed to be removed and replaced with a different sized building, so that's apartments over there. It's not projected to add much of the peak hour traffic, either morning or afternoon, so we did this more as a memo format for the study. There were a list of recommendations. I see Anna is on the line this evening. I think Mark Opitz had been in contact with the development team about the recommendations, none of which I would say are really substantive. It seemed like the biggest one was to shift the welcome sign 8 feet further west, just to better open up visibility of a driver who's parked at the egress onto Century Avenue, so that they can see up and down the bike path a little better. But no showstoppers, certainly, and nothing really, I would say, significant, even with this driveway. So, yeah, the staff recommendation is just approval of the report and endorsement of the recommendations.
This is Carrie. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the traffic impact analysis memo submitted and endorse the implementation of improvements recommended in the report.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion at this point? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand, either way. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. We're all present anyway. Item number 3, resolution 2024, Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 request for plan revision, client's turnaround easement and release a plotted turnaround easement or modify it. So you want to pull a plan up, Sean?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I've got 1,000 words, but one picture might do us some favors. So in Red Tail Ridge, and this is phase 1 up off of High Road to the east, one of the small east-west streets is named Thrasher, and it was platted with easements into private yards suitable for construction of a temporary turnaround. But the desire from the developer's perspective is to move the turnaround off into unplatted lands beyond phase one, so that these lots would be buildable. That's kind of the short version. So the goal is for the city, or the request for the city, to release the platted easements that affect these 4 parcels. And instead, accept an easement off into beyond phase one unplatted lands in which a turnaround could be built. So.
Does that affect phase 2, by the way?
That's beyond phase 2.
It is.
It might.
Okay.
So
I don't remember which phase it is, but Wade Wise is on the line.
this is what we were talking about at a previous common council meeting. The developer said otherwise we would have to give up some lot of space,
No,
different issue.
different issue.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
that was in phase 2. And this is kind of at the south edge of phase 1, totally different area.
Similar impact,
Yeah,
actually.
maybe, right? I mean, it makes these lots
Small.
developable, buildable right now. And just moves the cul-de-sac a little bit further away as a temporary cul-de-sac. Which is clearly good for the developer, but it's fine for us too.
That land, the easement area, who owns that land?
This is also owned by the developer. It's just they're out lot 7, which is everything else, right? So they platted an area and said, we're not platting that, but they own it.
Oh, so if they want to do future development, they've now
Be
approached
back at us.
they've encroached on their property already.
Yeah, and they'll be back at us probably to get rid of that easement and move it someplace else. To extend the road that direction. At this point, it doesn't make any difference, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't hurt us at all. In fact, I think they were gearing up and ready to build this, but, and this idea had been introduced at the staff level last fall, but then put on hold. And so now we're effectively just dusting it off and getting it off hold and into action so that they can build it.
This is Carrie. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recommend to Common Council approval of this resolution to release the platted Thrasher Street turnaround easement areas and accept the grant of the new Thrasher Street turnaround easement in Outlot 7.
Carrie made the motion. Is there a second?
This is Madden, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Carrie, second by Madden. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Do you know if that outlot was intended for another purpose originally? Like eventually being park or conservancy or something like that?
It's not, it's an extension of Thrasher Street in the future. In fact, you start to see this little curve developed on this line. So it's, the preliminary plat shows the entirety of the development when everything's said and done, at least in pretty good concept, I would say. So we already know what the future of Outlot 7 will look like someday,
Okay,
just not platted yet.
Just future lots, I believe, Brandon.
okay.
Yeah, it kind of keeps going for a bit.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up is award of the, oh, I can't move stuff sometimes, of the bid for Lake Street and Dewey Court. I think the short version was probably in my staff comments. Whereas the overall bid amount actually was pretty commensurate with the engineer's estimate at final design. But the water main cost itself was much higher. So I think we probably had a more typical breakdown of costs internally And when the bid came in, the water main portion of the costs was much higher, but other costs were offsetting lower. Pretty much, so it effectively shifted cost centers from what we thought it would be.
Water main though comes out of the water utility
Exactly.
and utility water rates, so to speak.
Water rates, rate payers instead
Is
of
there a problem? Do
taxpayers.
they have the money, the cash reserves for that at this point?
The utility does, it has a good cash position. We've been funded by cash for quite a long time. It's a long time since we've borrowed money for a capital improvement at the water or sewer utility. And we did have money even in the 2024 budget for the water utility for water main improvements because we had included Franklin Avenue in the 2024 budget, but we won't be building Franklin Avenue this year. So even though it's far over what we had anticipated, we do have cash in the water utility and in the budget. We won't need an amendment per se, other than an internal shift. It just will be using more money than we counted on. But the offsetting good news is, I guess we need a lot less money in the general fund capital borrowing than we thought we did or would as of a month ago. That was looking pretty bleak. So we were talking about canceling a project or at least shifting its funds over and then backfilling that hole someplace. And it doesn't seem like that'll be necessary now. So the overall recommendations for Speedway Sand and Gravel, they had the lower of the two bids. And then also to move forward with the Finance Committee recommendation for budget transfers as necessary to fund this project.
So it needs to go to finance and council,
It does.
attorney,
I'm
signing
sorry.
the contract, city attorney.
This is a pretty standard city agreement form, but yes, the city attorney will read it.
Okay, so finance, council and city attorney signature review.
I guess, is there anything you would like the finance committee to know at this point?
I haven't talked with Bill Burns yet, but he'll be drafting a budget resolution, a budget amendment resolution for consideration of the finance committee. And like I say, the big news is that it's just different than we had anticipated. So we thought we'd be looking for general capital fund money, and it turns out we're not. We're looking for not even authorization, but just acknowledgement that we would be using water utility cash balance. It's already in the 24 budget, just for a different project, which we're not doing, and it's already in the bank.
I'll go ahead and make that motion, that we recommend to the finance committee and the common council approval of the budget transfers that will be needed for this project. And award of the construction contract to Speedway Sand and Gravel. And do I need to state the amount?
I often just write it in. Yeah, you don't have to read the whole thing.
Okay.
It's down to 80 cents, which is
To the nearest
really hard to
dime.
figure out. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Carrie. Is there a second?
Thorman will second that.
Further discussion? Surprising bids came in low. Although we know how good engineers
So
are
then,
at estimating things.
so the money will come from stormwater. Some respect.
Well, the stormwater project, I think it was Graber Pond, is what we had talked about last at the council to eliminate that project being funded by the general fund and fund it instead through the stormwater utility. But that was when we had to backfill $300,000 of general fund, and that's not the case anymore. We're instead about, I don't know, what, $10,000 or so short on general fund money. Let me bounce down to the bottom of this memo. Kind of gives a gross overview of the different funds that'll be used on this project.
Water, there's the water utility. That's what I want.
Right, so So the general capital borrowing is only about $12,000 deficient instead of $300,000 deficient, which is what was worrying us. But the water utility is where that money went.
And if I remember historically now, since we've started this, you said that quite a while ago, it was the stormwater portion of this that kind of brought this whole thing about, because that was going to be the more expensive, complex part of this project.
The water main replacement
Yeah.
was what was really driving this thing. Like the pavement
I'm sorry.
was not good, but not awful, but the water main just kept breaking. And we couldn't patch it together.
So, right, so we. So to fix the water main, we're gonna redo
Gonna redo the road, and then it turned into,
A
let's
park.
add a park, and yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of grew into a
Yeah.
different thing than we initially sat down and thought it would be.
with the complexity of replacing that water main still exists.
Yeah, that has to be done.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.
All right, so let me go back to the, yeah, whoa. At a different scale.
I don't mind the difference.
Not your scales. So item 5 is consideration of redesign of the Lake Street plans. And so, right, so this came up, and there's been some email correspondence that mostly Charles and I were involved in with neighbors. And the request came down to kind of two things. One, eliminating the proposed raised crosswalk, effectively mid-block, I'll say, where the existing crosswalk is, and then installing a speed hump east of the Lake 61 garage entrance off of Lake Street, or maybe some other traffic calming feature. And so to take that up, somebody from the prevailing side of the previous vote to approve the plans would have to make a motion for reconsideration of prior committee action.
Can you, I'm almost willing to do that. However, can you pull up the plan and just, let's point out where one is and where one is proposed by the,
I had the same question, Don. I was wondering, like, before we make that motion, if we could just have a refresher of the current plan.
Yeah,
yeah,
so let me get, boy, the mouse is not playing today, but
you do see it there. The existing one is that.
so, yeah, this double line is effectively the end of Middleton Beach Road cul-de-sac.
Mhm.
And the lake is off to the east here. This plan is rotated, and I don't have a handy button to turn it. But anyway, this is the mid-block crosswalk at its current location per its current design. And failing anything else, this is what, I'm sorry, this is the current crosswalk location. But you'll recall at the committee, we shifted it a little bit east to make use of the existing inlets, knowing that this raised crosswalk would block gutter drainage. And instead of building brand new inlets 20 feet away, we had decided, well, let's move the raised crosswalk just a little bit east of where it currently is, so that we can make use of the storm. Let me zoom in for you.
Okay.
So that we can make use of the existing inlets already. So when water's trying to drain toward the lake, this will block that drainage and push it back toward this inlet. Does that make sense for where it is?
Yep.
Yeah, and the existing path is right
Here,
there. Okay.
right? So the plan was, well, let's move this raised crosswalk a little bit east and tie it back into Middleton Beach Road at the existing spot, but it's got sort of this Z-shaped offset to it, to make that work.
Okay. Let's go then and look at where the citizens would like it.
So let me go a little further east and I'll wave my hand around here, right? So just after this curve, and the Lake 61 driveway is right here. Just before the curve.
And that speed bump would be how far from the cul-de-sac?
This is, if I look at stations, that's about 150 feet in round numbers from the dead end.
Okay. And from an engineering standpoint, your staff has reviewed this. Is it a benefit to have it there?
From a data perspective, I'm not sure there's a benefit or need for traffic calming at all. From my own opinion, this was included at the request of the Public Works Committee during preliminary design without data or my recommendation. It just was added.
Boy, and I voted for that, didn't
Uh,
I? Never
I
mind.
don't remember.
Never mind. It was unanimous.
It was introduced and approved by the committee.
Let me ask this
I didn't beg for it.
question. If it were to move, would the crosswalk go back to where it was?
That is one of the proposals, right? So if we get rid of this raised crosswalk, then I would see no benefit at all for introducing this alignment shift in the sidewalk that connects this point to this. We've already got this ramp and curve in. This ramp and curve is in. We probably have to rebuild this ramp just to make the ADA grades of this sidewalk intersection work out.
Do the valve structures have to move?
This proposed manhole would be in the crosswalk.
Okay, not a problem. Well,
It's not ideal. It wouldn't be the only one ever, but yeah, I prefer if manhole covers aren't in a crosswalk. Sometimes they just are.
I mean, that to me looks like an easy change. To just slip it the east,
I'm sorry, slip what to the
that
east?
valve.
Oh, this valve?
Yeah.
It has to tie into this
Oh,
main.
that main, okay,
Because
never
we've
mind.
already got a valve and a hydrant here.
Yeah, never mind. Okay,
Yep, so it has to be on this line.
okay.
Is that the preference is to, and from the citizens to have it there, the crosswalk there? Where you're,
I am hearing the preference, at least the consensus of neighbors that I've heard from, that they would prefer this crosswalk remain in this location without being raised. And if I'm expressing that wrong, let me know. We have lots of neighbors here, but that's good.
before you maybe open it up, the other, I think, Don, I remember, I mean, I don't know, just going off my memory here, but I think there was some concerns by some of the neighbors about the speed of this road. And so I think that's why the raised crosswalk got brought up, right? Is like, and I think that's why maybe they're wanting some traffic calming measures just to kind of slow down speeds there. So anyways, I think that's kind of why that got brought up, I believe.
That is a great point, Carrie. The way I said it made it sound like the committee just came up with it out of the thin air. That is not so. It was raised as a neighbor concern.
Okay,
I just didn't have data or a recommendation on that. So you're right.
so personally, I don't see any benefit of having a speed bump within 150 feet of a turnaround cul-de-sac
Oh, to put a
there.
speed hump here
Yeah,
with a dead end here.
Yeah, if we were to move it to the west of the original sidewalk, west, that's east. Yeah.
Yes, someplace down in this area.
Yeah, first of all, it would not need the benefits of adding storm drains because you could make it like your normal mid-block speed bump, correct?
Right, a speed hump does not block
Not-
drainage.
it also would immediately slow them down at that point, right? Somewhere before the crosswalk. You know, would it? Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
In theory,
So part of what I'm hearing from folks is that they would prefer if we don't have a speed hump west of the Lake 61 driveway. That's part of the request. And that puts us way down here.
question, Sean, so, one's technical, so having all the valves and things in the current crosswalk, I can see potential how crosswalk could get shut down for maintenance and whatnot, just because you have to do work at the manhole cover and get there, so then people can't cross the street there.
Well,
Yeah,
for that 3-hour period, we would expect people to walk around that zone.
Exactly.
Yes.
and I certainly appreciate the value of traffic calming. And I'm just wondering, okay, how do we, from an engineering perspective, maybe have a crosswalk that's always there and always available, and then have some traffic calming somewhere that makes the crosswalk, people using it feel safe. So, you know, having the speed bump close to the cul-de-sac, doesn't seem to.
that doesn't do it. That's why I said to the west of the crosswalk would be a much better place for the speed bump.
I just don't know what the impact is of, moving everything.
Having read the citizens' concerns, they're concerned about garbage trucks or other trucks coming through there and making noise.
Will for sure.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, speed bump slows them down, and so they stop, you hear the brakes go. And right, you hear it every time the truck stops in front of your house, then you hear them get on the gas to go about 50 feet.
Well, in our neighborhood.
Until the
they go
next
40.
can.
Yeah.
They go 40 in my neighborhood.
Yeah, full throttle, and then
Stop.
on the brakes again, full throttle, on the brakes again.
Right.
Yeah,
I,
I mean, that's a tough one.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, part of me thinks that I don't know if we really need a speed bump on this short, like you said, Sean, this is like a short dead end road. And the zigzagging of the current sidewalk also kind of bothers me. I can kind of see why the citizens were like, oh, people are just gonna walk the shortest, they might create a new path, right? Like they're just gonna take the shortest distance. But
Yeah.
so I don't know, Don, like how you're thinking, but in some ways I just don't know like if it's worthwhile to have to redesign everything. I guess that's what I'm trying to, because right now we don't have a speed bump, right? We just have this raised crosswalk.
And
Right?
we have an elevated crosswalk.
Yeah.
Which is a quasi speed bump. But where the people are standing. Or crossing.
Yeah.
Is it safe to assume that any change at this point would be an additional cost for redesign?
Kevin Lord is on the call and he's with MSA, the design firm. It seems to me if we're moving a hump from one spot to the next, it's a pretty minimal change.
I would agree with that. I mean, it depends on obviously what you're going to obviously decide to do ultimately, but if it's just moving something that's already there, the new grades are set by the curb that's there or whatever. So unless for some reason it gets extended somewhere where there's no sidewalk or something like that, but there's, planned sidewalk all the way through. So I don't see it as anything major.
I guess I like the idea of having a raised crosswalk. It maybe not necessarily there, but I think somebody else mentioned having it closer to like station 1500,
Sort of.
where it's more halfway between the two curves.
Kevin, you mean a speed bump, correct? Not a raised crosswalk?
A raised crosswalk. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then we get to storm sewer design and that would be a different thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just talking a speed bump where the hand is. And then put the crosswalk back where it was originally. As just a crosswalk.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's a good compromise, Don.
So before we start talking about specifics, I wonder if we want a motion to reconsider.
Yeah, Carrie, you want to make the motion or should I can make it? I don't care. Move that we
Doesn't matter.
reconsider the raised crosswalk location versus speed bump
Or just, yeah, plan revisions or something.
revisions.
Yeah, that's cool. That'll get us rolling.
Carrie, you're probably, or I don't know, were you here, Brandon, when we approved these plans originally? Probably.
Yes.
Okay,
Larry
so-
and Brandon were here.
So Brandon or Carrie can make a second on that if they so desire.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. No, that can be the whole committee, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
And since we have neighbors here, I don't know if you can invite feedback from their
you've heard
perspective.
this discussion back and forth. Is it acceptable to put the crosswalk back where it was? Because that's a Z, well, first of all, it's an engineering decision, not a citizen decision. We have to go with that first. But do that, put the sidewalk back where it was and the crosswalk, and then move the speed bump to the west. Because moving it to the east past the entrance into the 61, well, then I would go along with not having a speed bump at all, rather than just that location, because it really doesn't do anything.
Mind if I address it? Sorry, do you mind if I address the question? Sure. Okay. I think that we definitely appreciate just going back to the original structure of the crosswalk that it raised. And part of the concern there was that vehicles going over that were just going another 20 feet to Tim's apartment entrance. But I asked to address this because I am the one that probably instigated calming traffic on the street and had many discussions over the years for that. And it's based on what I've seen on the street and how things travel. The stretch, if you move, the more I've thought about this and the more I've watched it, the focus, I felt like a speed bump down just past the curb actually focuses it where it needs to be. When I talked with Sean about it, people would see it and would be slowing down. But the people just going to the garage that are already slowing down wouldn't be going over that hump. So it wouldn't be a nuisance and create extra noise, but it would be creating the incentive to slow down before you get to it. You'd be seeing it up the street. Now, thinking about the speed hump closer west or farther west where you're talking about, it's pretty close after you turn on to the road. And there's still a long stretch for people to speed up. And where we have the trouble is where they're coming down past the curb and into that shot into the area where there's the park users and the residents, and that's where we need it slowed. So people that are going past the curb are accelerating down past the curb. I feel like any speed bump higher up or even where the crosswalk was, people are just going to be accelerating again from that point. I felt like the speed bump just past the curve, as close as you can make it to the curb, people see it. It kind of visually breaks that portion of the street where there's going to be park users, and it would certainly have them slow before they enter that area. So I thought that my feeling is that that's the best compromise and focus that actually focuses it where it's needed the most, the speed calming. And I'm the one that probably originally pushed for some calming on the street, although everybody in the neighborhood has supported that from what we've seen. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask if I could address the sidewalk, the location of the sidewalk. Where it is now, I think it's, the connector path is now, it's been very effective and people use it.
Mhm.
If you move it to the east, because the majority of the people are going to Allen Boulevard, to or from Allen Boulevard, that use that connector path. If you move it east, people will think it's out of the way, and they'll start creating footpaths through the grass like
Yeah.
we used to have.
Yeah.
That's fine. I think I think the committee seems to be pretty much in agreement to put it back where it was. So it's a straight shot from the cul-de-sac across the street. And
So
you don't
that's
have to
what we're
do the
doing.
zigzag to get there. I can't even imagine how a bike would do that,
Thank you.
Sean. You'd be making paths in the grass.
Yeah, I
Um,
think
Probably.
yeah, no. So it's a matter of where the speed bump goes, and the speed bump isn't really needed, and we're doing it for neighborhood agreement and happiness. I don't care if it goes east or west, doesn't make any difference to me. Since
Yeah, I don't have data to support its needs, so if we
Yeah.
want to build it, we
Where would
can.
that be in relationship to the Century Harbor Road?
Well, the talk I heard was at Station 15, which is, so Harbor's at 1425, give or take, so 75 feet east of Century Harbor Road, give or take.
I'm just,
I know it's a little goofy
I-
being upside down, but
yeah, I'm looking at
I
it.
kind of feel like that there maybe don't, I kind of think we don't need a speed bump on this road, because I mean, if people are pulling into Harbor or the apartment building, and then what's the, I don't know, and then there's like the dead end. So I don't know, that's just my, like, I'm really supportive of traffic calming, but I don't know if it makes sense in this instance.
the other thing we could do is defer construction of it until there's a documented need or benefit or known location of problem or something like that. That would be an option too.
That's
Right.
true, 'cause we can add it
Speed-
later,
yeah.
right, Sean? Like, that's not a big issue.
So retrofits are pretty easy for a speed bump. In fact, often we'll pave the road and then cut it out and put the concrete in.
Oh.
So we know its grade and location.
Could I add one more piece of information? Years ago, when we were first talking about speed on the street, and actually Sean did a speed study or laid the cable across, and not remembering the exact numbers, but actually what it showed, what really struck me, and this is what I see visually, is that people coming down there, even though they know that it's a dead end, I mean, fishermen, park users, whoever, they're anxious to get down there for some reason. And the people that were traveling eastward on the street were traveling much faster, like 10 miles an hour faster than people, once they got to turn around and came back up the street, they're coming much slower up the street. And I see that all the time. So the focus, once again, if there is some sort of speed calming, the focus to me was before you get to that second part of the street that turns into the park area, and that's where you really want to focus it. And anything before that, people are speeding up and going down there anyway. I would tend to agree that speed hump further west on the road just isn't useful from what I've seen. I would say, yeah, it would be beneficial, very useful if it was just beyond the curve.
And I looked that up after we chatted, Tom, and we had, but it was 12 years ago.
Right. It was-
Measured speed over here.
And it was a very hot weekend. It was calm and stuff.
It was a little faster eastbound than westbound, but even eastbound was only 25 miles an hour, which is unheard of for a local street. We never get it that.
Yeah, and they're still accelerating at that point though, too. So.
Well, not by far they couldn't have. They'd have been wet.
They do. So in any case, I personally am in agreement with everybody sitting here. I don't see a value based on my experience for the speed hump further
To go west. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Sean, my objective, I think is consistent with the neighborhood here. My concern with, by the way, I own the Lake 61 apartment project. My thought is twofold. One, the vast majority of traffic on Lake Street will be residents of our project,
For
who
sure.
will be slowing down because they're approaching the garage. The second thought relative to traffic is it is going to change, I think drastically, when there are not as many fishermen with boats and trailers scooting down. So I think the dynamic of Lake Street could change in general. My concern selfishly, admittedly, is with a raised crosswalk, it essentially is a speed bump. And every time my residents come in and out, they're navigating a speed bump, and they're the vast majority of the traffic on the street. And they're only going another 40 or 50 or 60 feet, whatever it is, and slowing down already. So from my perspective, I'm not a fan of the raised speed bump, raised crosswalk, because de facto it's a speed bump.
It crosswalks gone. We've
Well,
agreed,
we haven't made
But
a motion.
I thought it was just moved to
it's
the,
just moved, but it's not raised.
it's not raised. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
It's going back to the way it was.
And to clarify,
Reload.
there's been talk of that, and
Yeah,
I
it
think
has-
Don is
we haven't
expressing
made a
committee
motion.
consensus, but there has not been a vote.
There has not been a vote
Yeah.
on it
I'm
yet.
sorry, I
So,
misunderstood that.
I would say, like, I'm leaning towards, just to kind of talk to the committee members, like, I like the idea of moving the sidewalk back to where it originally was. It wouldn't be raised. And then I really like Sean's comment about reevaluating the need for a speed bump later, because I agree that with this apartment building, and then there's a park at the end, there's not a boat launch, the street has changed, so I think we should just wait and reevaluate if there's a need for a speed bump later on. That's kind of where I'm,
in the form of a motion, Carrie, and we can see how far it goes.
okay. Sure, I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion. Here, let me make it.
Withdraw the one that's on the floor.
Pardon?
We're withdrawing the one that's on the floor.
Well, we didn't have a motion, just
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
thought.
so here, I'll make a
Please.
motion that we, eliminate the proposed raised crosswalk and move that to where the current path is. I don't know, Sean, if you need.
I'll find a station and write it into the minutes.
Okay, thank you. And, that we do not add a speed bump at this time, but reevaluate that at a later date if needed.
As chair, I can second it as chair. I don't like making motions, but I'll second it.
Oh, I thought David was just about to.
I know he was. I haven't done anything yet, but try to run the meeting, so.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Don, it looks like Mark's hand is up.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Hi, it's Mark Opitz, city planner. I was just thinking about this project too, and it was just interested in the debate here. Sean, as you know, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk with you about this today. We have the Allen Boulevard path that's going to be extended north from Midtown. And I was just wondering whether that's something, whether the design could accommodate a raised crosswalk where the path is going to cross, where the sidewalk is along Allen Boulevard in the future. And I don't know where the inlets are in relation to that, but that seems like something, I was wondering if the committee had an interest in that.
Right in this intersection.
Well, right. And it doesn't have to be much of a raised crosswalk, but something that has sort of a continuous sidewalk, a continuous path concept, so that you don't have the handicap ramps, when you are on a path where it dips down and up. I'm not saying it needs to be raised too much, but I'm just wondering whether the design would allow a continuous crosswalk through there. Which is something I thought of this weekend.
That's an
Is that like
interesting
those,
point, Mark, because there's a lot, I mean, that intersection, I feel like, I don't know if we need to discuss this at a later meeting, but I feel like it's problematic for people turning left and right and people coming in for pedestrians crossing there, it seems very dangerous. So yeah, I think that's a good comment or something we should think about.
I think that's something we would defer to, take it back to engineering and let them look at it before we do any action on it. Because it
Yeah.
could look at things and then verify that everything would meet ADA requirements and whatnot before we make any decisions. But I'm glad to hear that that's moving forward, Mark. That's good.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I didn't discuss it with either Sean or Kevin today. I actually had meant to do that and I forgot. So I apologize.
Right. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, wait, I forgot to write down, you seconded.
I did, I remember. Which I know.
Your memory is better than my
Oh,
writing
no,
here.
don't even go there. Okay,
So,
yeah, no raised sidewalk, sidewalk will go back to where it was and we'll evaluate the speed bump at some later date. Once this thing is complete and the park is actually active, which won't be now or till 2025.
2025,
Yeah,
before it really gets rolling.
because of peer requirements and DNR permits. Yes, sir.
Follow-up question, is there a default, since this is a dead end and everything, will there be any default signs like slow dead end or anything like? There's nothing on the street right now to say even slow or speed or anything, so.
I
Don't know,
had a dead end sign here, did we not,
we did not.
by Ellen?
It might have come down or something at some point.
Interesting.
I guess that's just something,
That's an operational thing.
Yeah,
that's
that
not an
might be
ordinance
just something that
thing.
we can take a step as fits in your criteria, Sean,
Yeah,
for that stuff as we can.
and you and I already talked about the committee and council's
Right.
support for a brown sign too, that says, hey, no boat launch. Don't bother coming down here.
Yeah.
Even talking about speed in the future, so there's just nothing indicating anything right now, so. I think it's a good place to be to evaluate the speed bump in the future
Okay,
and see what else can be done in between.
okay,
Easily. So,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I don't know if there were any other comments we should consider. I mean, apart from the motion, just road wise, plan wise.
I think we appreciate all of the work and consideration and time that everybody has put in and, rechecking this issue and, so forth. And, we, on our end, I think we've tried to really work together and honestly give you the best input that we could for everybody's sake,
Okay.
the users and safety and so forth. So, we really appreciate being able to work with you on it.
Okay,
Well, and
Thanks.
that's been really good.
Yeah.
Right? We have plenty of road projects where no one says anything till it's done.
No, I think we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Want to move it forward and we just want to help as we can based on the experience that we have.
So thank you for being willing to revisit this.
Sure.
those few details.
And that's the committee. Yeah.
Everybody.
I don't count for that.
we don't give him any,
No, right.
he gets paid, we don't.
There you go.
Neither do we, yes. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. John, we've got an amendment to a engineering.
Yes, right. So among other things that are related to Lake Street, we're going to need construction engineering services. So Kevin put together an amendment for us. That's well documented with a scope and a fee that's broken down so we can get a sense of how many hours are put into it. And so the staff recommendation is also to bring this to the Finance Committee and Common Council, which is already figured in to the overall project funding needs that we previously talked about.
Just a general introduction, Sean and I did talk about this today. And it seems like a lot, and then when Sean defined that this water main is going to be just a total mess, that Kevin himself is volunteered to stand and watch them do this. Is that right, Kevin? You're volunteering to actually stand by and watch?
That it wouldn't be a bad thing.
It might be. I think you'd get paid way too much. The only concern I have, and it's with every T&M not to exceed, is if there happens to be a scope issue during construction, that Kevin, your people are on top of it and notify the city immediately. Hey, I don't think this is in scope at this point. Let's continue with our not to exceed fee, but note that there may be a change because of these issues, and then list the issues. And I would imagine, Kevin, you have no problem.
No, I don't have any problem, and our construction staff has worked with Sean and his group quite a bit, so I said I definitely don't see a problem with that, and we'll bring that up to the contractor at the pre-con and and everything else and start from there.
Yeah, and we usually remember to mention it too, but I'm glad that Don does from a committee perspective is if anything starts to get out of your scope, we need to know, even if you think you can handle it within the limiting fee, just so that the committee becomes aware of that, that it might be an issue that comes up for a future amendment. That it's not the kind of thing I'm blindsiding them with later.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yeah, okay.
And I
Yeah.
can, and I don't know how much Sean went into detail on it, but we kind of, what I started with is, and I know we had talked at the committee level, but just so everybody knows, we kind of assumed this would probably be like roughly a 3-month project. So a lot of it's based off of assuming, 3 months of a contract. Obviously there's rain days, there's this, there's lots of different things, and some days they don't work and everything, but that's kind of where the general timeline of things kind of started from.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in your position many times, Kevin. All right, that was my only comments on it. I initially looked high until Sean and I talked about it. And I understand now what's really going on with the project and where the work really is. So, does that get divided?
That's
to
broken
water
into buckets
utility?
too.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, that's better.
Yeah,
That's good.
and that's all built into that other spreadsheet that I showed during
Yep.
bid award.
Yep, got it.
Kevin added his numbers in there too.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion and a second, and then we'll open it up for further discussion, if there is any.
I could make a motion.
And
I move that where am I? That we recommend Finance Committee and Common Council approve a contract amendment with MSA an amount not to exceed 121,800 for construction phase services.
All right, Lauren will second that.
motion by Brandon, seconded by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Kevin, I don't know if you're gonna hang in there, but I do thank you for showing up. It's always good to have the engineer that we can beat up. Comes to these meetings and
Well, I thank you, and it's been good working through this project with everybody as well.
all right, thank you for being here.
Yep.
All right, Sean, item number 7.
Right, and this is an annual thing, so Tom Weber of our staff goes around and checks about 1/8 of the city and checks every joint on all the sidewalks in about 1/8 of the city, which is a monumental task in itself. But then he color codes and paints and sends out postcards. And one of the items that's a statutory requirement is that we, as a committee, then determine that these are deficiencies. I don't know how your weekend looked for running through this list and making sure Tom was right, but it is a required element for any future assessments back to property owners because of that. And this is just fixing sidewalk. So for the most part, what we do is remove and replace if it's bad enough. But he runs 2 other sub-programs. One is to grind off edges where there's a tripping hazard. If we can get that back within ADA scope and still have minimum thickness on the slab, we'll try that. And sometimes we can mud jacket back into line. And so he tries what he can to save what we can before removing and replacing.
So speaking on behalf of a homeowner who's been through this,
That's me too.
I understand it and appreciate it, and I've lived it. Would say I would appreciate more, after they take out a piece of sidewalk, they actually do a better job of filling the dirt in, because they do a very poor job. And that's the contractor, I know that's.
I think that's common. Yeah.
We haven't found one yet that's really, really good about that. And we sit them down at the beginning and we say, I know your business is concrete, but what people care about is grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, I mean, really, so, mean, I bought like, I don't know, several bags of topsoil and then put it down, and then the rain washed it in onto the concrete, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah,
much
that's-
rather have the contractor's dirt washed onto your sidewalk. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
Right.
Just sweeping that up is easier. I know exactly what you mean.
All right.
And Tom does what he can to chase them down, so
I'm in an older neighborhood, that's why, you know.
I never tell people not to call, because then he won't chase them down, but I know it gets frustrating.
I had actually going after the fiber guys that were destroying property.
Oh, yeah.
No, they were doing.
Yeah, they
I
can be
literally
pretty tough
called
groups.
TDS and told them, look, man, you're putting this fiber in. Your guys aren't doing you any favors. And immediately they were out and cleaned it up. I was shocked.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, just, you know, I did tell them I was on Public Works Committee. I think that carried a lot of weight.
Oh, be there. Yeah, there you go.
So do we need a motion to agree with this or just a consensus?
Do need a motion that the committee determines the need for corrective actions
Just like that?
for them to be accessible. Yep.
Well, Dave, you're affected. I think you should.
Okay. Dave's happy to make a motion that we approve the memorandum for Public Works Department City of Middleton dated April 12th. Miscellaneous, the 2024 miscellaneous concrete repair project. Do I have a second?
And this will be to
Second.
determine deficiencies in need of corrective action.
Determine
Those are-
deficiencies in need of corrective
Those are the
action.
magic words that are
Yeah.
gonna make it go.
Brandon, you agree with that little amendment that Sean just threw in there for your second?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We probably have beat it to death already, so all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. I heard all five.
All right.
Item number 8, Railroad Historic District proposed creation.
Yeah, and this comes to us, Daphne Shu of our planning staff gave me a heads up that this is in the works, and I didn't know it, but our ordinance says that among others, the Public Works Committee, well, the way it's phrased made it sound like you have to provide some sort of response, right? It says you shall respond, but I don't know exactly what that means, and I've not run through it before. But in any case, so I just put it on the agenda in case you wanted to provide either some comments, feedback, input, thoughts, or no comment. And in case I'm right and that the ordinance means you shall respond, we will have responded. Yes,
Do you want to go around the table for comments?
sure, and let me bring up,
Yeah, why don't you bring up do you have a map of the area?
I do.
That would be ideal. Having lived in several historic homes, I'm all for historic districts.
This is a view, you know, OSHA's probably on these guys.
Or was.
Oh, I can't rotate that one. Let me zoom in and get the other one in on landscape orientation here. Okay, so maybe for quick orientation, here's the depot building at Parmenter Street. And it goes all the way along sort of Terrace Avenue to Middleton Street. I think this might be our alderman's home, right, John? Drawing a blank.
John Schaefer.
Schaefer.
Schaefer, I think might live here. But then along Terrace Avenue, the other way to Hotland Road. And it includes some properties that may not be historic, some that are clearly not historic. But at least it touches on then many that are. And so that's good news.
Those that aren't, do they have the opportunity to object?
Well, there will be a public hearing,
Okay,
and I think that's their opportunity to
okay.
provide feedback.
In that case, I have no comment and we'll let the system proceed. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I agree, I'm fine too.
Yeah, same. I want to hear from the neighbors and
The
the
people?
people who actually own those homes.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brandon or Carrie, if you had any thoughts?
Just generally, I'm in favor of historical preservation. I think there's opportunities there. But I don't really have a comment until maybe after their meeting or we get a little more information.
All right. So Carrie?
Yeah, I
Carrie?
think I'm in the same, I'm still like processing a little bit, but yeah, I think the, no comment for now.
In general, no comment until process proceeds further. Get more feedback.
Maybe I'll write it. No
I mean,
comment
I
this time.
agree that I'm kind of in favor for preservation of historic, like, so I don't know if that's a comment, but, I just haven't dug into the details of what it means.
Is the committee comfortable with me writing that as a consensus comment anyway, that we're favorable of historic preservation?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
someday Brandon, they're gonna get our entire neighborhood into a historic district.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, mine's getting there.
I just saw a blurb on the news tonight. There was, I didn't know, but one of the World's Fair Wisconsin pavilions, I think from New York World's Fair, is in apparently Neilsville, and they run a radio station out of it. And so it's still hanging around in Wisconsin.
Yeah, being an
That looks great,
expert
but-
water utility guy, systems guy, was impressed that the Beloit building got blown up by winds. The
Oh, no.
historic pumping station.
Man,
All right, last item on the agenda is for further discussion, and since I won't be here May 13th, I definitely do not have anything for the next meeting.
I don't have anything for the next meeting either.
Gary?
Nothing.
Our new members.
At some point, we'll, future agenda will be the Old Creek Pleasant Branch Board.
yeah, we're collecting data now.
Yep.
And so after that, then we're bringing it back.
Okay.
Yeah, and the committee previously moved on that already.
Mr. Alder, if you're a member of that committee now, it's not on the agenda, but if you were to ask the Middleton Glen people when they're gonna open their parking lot to traffic and parking, I would be extremely happy. Because they keep coming after us in Middleton Hills. to find
That'll be
parking.
all, that'll actually be your alder, Lisa and I will.
Oh, at least, okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She's a,
But it's a
Never mind.
co-project, it's a co-project of Old Creek Road residents and.
okay,
So, but I'm happy to pass it along.
okay,
And that's coming back.
all right, you, anything? for next meeting? Nothing, so we have nothing.
So if you want to declare the meeting.
I
adjourned,
want to
that'd be an
declare the
order.
meeting adjourned, yes.
There we go. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Yep, have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.
Where's the boundary line for the